So, you've flown to Moscow despite all of the difficulties with travel nowadays, no direct flights, weird transfer routes, overpriced tickets. You've made that long, awkward journey. You've landed, you're tired, you're probably a bit hungry, you're dreaming about a hot shower and a proper meal. You queue up at passport control, you hand over your passport with a smile, and the border guard pauses. He looks at his computer screen, he glances back at you. Then he picks up his phone, he makes a call, and he sets your passport aside. Then he looks up at you and says, "Wait, please." A few minutes later, you're asked to sit in a separate area where a handful of other foreigners are also waiting. You think, maybe it's a random check, maybe it'll be quick. And then 10 minutes pass, and then half an hour passes, and other passengers from your flight are getting stamped into the country, they're picking up their bags, they're heading out into the city, and you're still sitting there. Eventually, someone approaches you, in uniform, clearly official, young, polite, calm, speaking in a low, firm accent. They say, "Mr. Tickle, come with me." And that's when you realise you're not just going through border control. You're about to be interrogated by Russia's security agency, the FSB. For any of my subscribers not familiar with Moscow, this is a modern art museum. It's called Guess 2. It used to be a power station and it's now been changed into a art museum. This is the artwork in front of it, which everyone says looks like, you know what it looks like. And this is the River Moscow heading towards Gorky Park. Okay, so that opening to this video isn't some dramatic once in a lifetime thing. For me, this happens all the time. In fact, getting interrogated is now basically a routine for me. Since 2022, every time I've entered Russia, I've been pulled aside for what they call an additional check, or дополнительная проверка. It's happened to me double figures by now, every time in the last 3 years. Only once has it been smooth. And that one time I was traveling with my partner. We were returning from a 2-week beach holiday in Turkey. We'd flown out of Moscow. We were coming straight back. Maybe that helped. Maybe that was just dumb luck. I honestly don't know. But I was so shocked to be waved through. I almost didn't believe I wasn't getting interrogated this time. But every other time, same pattern. The border guard sees my blue passport, scans it, makes the call, I'm told to wait, and then I'm taken for a chat. So this video isn't based on a one-off scare story, it's based on multiple repeated experiences over the past 3 years. So let's start by talking about the wait. Ironically, the actual interrogation is usually much shorter than the wait to be seen. And that wait can actually really drag. Sometimes you're sat there just for 10 minutes, other times over an hour. It often depends on who else was on your flight, where they came from. I've sat in holding areas with people from Turkey, Central Asia, the US, the UK, places Russia seems to pay closer attention to nowadays. Back in 2022, before they set up a filtering system for Ukrainian nationals, you'd also be waiting alongside Ukrainians, but now there's been a change. They can only fly to Sheremetyevo Airport, which I try to avoid. In general, at airports, the wait to be seen is around 30 minutes to an hour. It can go longer, but that's the standard. At land borders, however, not an airport, it can be way worse. Once in winter 22, I spent 8 hours at the border just waiting to be seen. I assume that was because of a staffing issue, and the worst part of that was they confiscated all of my electronics during that waiting time, so I couldn't even watch YouTube while I was just sat there. Although that doesn't happen at the big international airports, thankfully. That's just the land borders. So you're waiting and then your name is called, sort of like at a doctor's surgery. You stand up, you make yourself known, and you follow the FSB officer into a separate room. And that room is usually a very modest office, desk, chairs, neutral walls, nothing particularly special or intimidating. Occasionally they'll start by fingerprinting you and taking your photo. That's rare, it's only happened to me twice. In most cases, it's just that the officer who escorted you sort of steps out and someone else introduces themselves to you, someone more senior. And this will be the person who will be doing in the questioning. In my experience, the FSB officers are always calm, professional, and often quite friendly. It's never aggressive. But let's talk about the actual questions that they ask you. So they normally start with the basics. Why are you here? Where will you stay? Who do you live with? What's your job? And they'll ask you about people you know here. That's like easy stuff. You should be able to do that off the top of your head, no problem. And then they tend to go a little bit deeper. They often ask about your family. What do your parents do for work? Where do they live? These are all things that are easy enough to answer as well. And sometimes that's just it. That's where the interrogation ends. They thank you. Often they escort you to passport control and you're through. But very often the questions after that point shift into a political territory. Why do you live in Russia instead of the UK? So it's like, what do you think of Russia compared to the UK? And it's then questions like, what do you think of the current political situation? They often ask about Ukraine. Last time I was asked if I'd ever been to Ukraine, and I said, yes, of course, I went to Kiev and Chernobyl back in 2018. A totally normal trip for tourism, and they were fine with it, no more questions about that. But these political questions tend to not be very hard. It's like they're trying to get a sense of your mindset, maybe. Why are you here, really? What's your vibe? And I have to say, even when it does get political in these interrogations, it hasn't been hostile. I've heard stories from others who have had more intense interrogations, but I'm going to speak about their experiences in the next section. As part of the interrogation process, they often check your phone. It's not every time, but lately for me it's been most times. First off, they write down your IMEI number and your phone number, then they ask you to unlock your phone. From there, they usually look through your photos, your WhatsApp and other messengers, as well as your contacts list. They're not scrolling through your Spotify playlists or anything like that. They're clearly looking for certain things, political or terror related from what I can tell. At airports, they usually check your phone right in front of you as you're sat there. At land borders, like when I entered from Estonia, well, they took it out of my sight. I didn't know what they were doing. That's a little bit more unnerving. Sometimes they ask you questions about what they see on your phone. For example, I've been asked about a friend who was on my contacts list who had a Ukrainian phone number. I've been asked about a couple of chats I've had on WhatsApp with Russian people. A friend of mine actually had to explain once to an FSB officer about a meme in one of his group chats that didn't translate pretty well. I mean, just try explaining British sarcasm to the FSB, it's difficult. But that said, the checks tend to be relatively quick. They're not digging through everything. They seem to just search for certain words in your WhatsApp. They skim through your recent photos, and they're looking in your contacts to see if you're in contact with any Ukrainians. That, for me, appears to be the bulk of the phone check. So when the questions are over, the phone checks are over, they normally say something like, okay, everything is fine, please wait outside the room, someone will collect you. And then a little bit later, you're escorted back to the main immigration hall by normally the guy who brought you there, and then they take you to the front of the passport control queue. They stamp your passport and you're in. No extra paperwork, no notes, no warnings, you're just, you're done. And then you spend your time thinking, was that it? And then, you know, after the 10th time, you're like, yeah, that really is it. It's interrogation, but it's pretty calm in the grand scheme of things. But some of you are probably asking, why? Why is this happening? Well, after February 2022, Russia tightened security, especially for people from the countries on the unfriendly list. That includes the UK, where I'm from, the US, EU nations. It's not a personal thing, you're not special, you're not being picked for any special reason, it's politics. In 2023, it felt like things were starting to relax a little, but then the Crocus City Hall attack happened last year and things ramped up again. The clampdown at the border mostly affected Central Asian migrants from what I saw, but it definitely stretched FSB capacity and made wait times at the border just longer across the board, basically no matter where you're from if you get an interrogation. Since I first mentioned interrogations on a YouTube video, I've had a bunch of emails about it. People saying things like, I've got nothing on my phone, but I'm scared they'll twist something. Or what if I liked the wrong tweet years ago? Or what if I joined a Telegram channel without knowing exactly what it was? And these are valid questions, these are valid concerns, because yeah, of course, if you've got something sensitive or political on your phone or something wildly out of context, it can definitely raise questions, even if it's just a joke between friends. But here's the reality. I've never heard of someone being denied entry into Russia for that, not once. And I know hundreds of people who've had these interrogations. Unless you've got something truly outrageous on your phone, like a swastika wallpaper or political protest material, you're going to be just fine. The only people I'd tell to think twice are those who have spent a lot of time in Ukraine recently and they don't have a super clear explanation why, like they were working for an international newspaper or something. Then you might have a lot more questions. Otherwise, it's going to be fine for most people. So if it happens to you, what should you do? All right, I have 5 tips for you. Number 1, stay calm. You're not under arrest, you're not in trouble. Number 2, be honest. Don't try outsmart them, just be direct and honest. Number 3, if you don't speak Russian, let them know. They'll usually find someone who does, or they'll just speak to you in a simple way. Number 4, don't panic about your phone, but don't bring anything on it that you would struggle to explain. And number 5, be patient. The wait might be very long, but that's not about you. That's a simple capacity thing. So yeah, that's it. That's just a part of traveling to Russia now. It's not ideal, of course. It's not fun, but it's manageable, and from a national security point of view, it's understandable. It's not a reason to cancel your trip, especially if you're already interested in visiting. And once you've gone through it once, you just get used to it super fast. The first time, of course, is uncomfortable, maybe even scary. And after that, it's just a part of a modern journey to Russia. So if this is the one thing for you holding you back from visiting, I have to say, don't let it be. Just know what to expect and be prepared, and you'll be totally fine. There won't be any problems. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. If you've got questions or your own border experiences to share, drop them in the comments below, and I will try to reply to as many as I can. If you're still wondering whether Russia is worth visiting in 2025, I've got some other videos on that too.